Hi, I'm with etrailer. Today we're going to be talking about the Pewag assisted tensioning tire chains on our 2022 Ford F450. So let's check them out. Now we do have these on some dually tires today on our rear axle as what the manual recommends. And something else about these, they're going to be on tire size 225, 70, or 19.5. Now that's just our tire size we have today. They will fit a variety of other sizes. And that's why I recommend putting in your vehicle's tire information into our fit guide so we can make sure we're getting the right one for your needs. But these are going to be a great set of chains because one, I'm a fan of cams. I know some people don't like them, but where I think cams really come in the hand is if you're really struggling with trying to get these as tight as possible, these cams come in the hand. And another thing that I really like about them is it's made by Pewag, and Pewag makes a really nice premium chain when we compare it to some of the other ones out there. So with these chains, they are going to come in a kit of 2, and with the links specifically, they're going to be a square link design. Now with a square link design, what I like about that is it gives you a ton of more bite when it comes to breaking through ice and snow, so great for your moderate to heavier conditions. Now we're also going to have these grooves cut into them, and those grooves also do give it a little bit more traction compared to other square links out there. And you'll see that this is going to connect here in the center, because I know some dually chains just come in 2 separate ones. These are going to be one continuous chain that reaches across. I like that because it's less likely of you losing anything. And these are going to be in a ladder pattern. Ladder patterns are great for giving you that initial traction when you're starting and you're stopping, so you're a bit safer on the road. And then here in the center, you notice this is fairly tight, and that's going to be because, again, these cams help us out a bunch. We're actually going to have 3 of them here in the front, and then we're going to have 2 on the inside. I will say those 2 on the inside are typically pretty hard to reach, but the way this works is you have this tool, and this very end that's kind of bent just goes into this section. You turn it, you see the loosens. You have a lot more slack now, or it tightens up. Now, even though we do have the cams on here, I do strongly encourage investing in some rubber tensioners, because what happens when you're driving down the road is things are going to shift, they're going to move around a little bit, and when they do, they loosen up. And what these rubber tensioners do, they keep things nice and tight even if they do loosen up. And you can find a lot of different sizes here on our website, but I'd recommend if you have a larger truck like we have today, then get some larger truck rubber tensioners. Now these chains are going to come in this light duty bag. You'll get 2 of these bags because the chains themselves are fairly large. Now if you're using these fairly consistently, they're probably going to rip through this bag fairly soon after a few uses. So what I'd recommend doing is investing in a small tote or box to keep your chains in, so they just last longer and they're just easier to manage too. If you're not a big fan of the cams, there is going to be another option by Pewag without the cams on them. Now when it comes to the installation process, it can be a little bit tricky, but we do talk about some tips and tricks to get this on a little bit easier. So let's check it out. So the first thing we want to do when we get our chains is just inspect them. We want to make sure there's no damages to them, nothing's tangled up, and everything's in the right orientation. And I'd recommend grab some gloves to make this a little bit easier so you don't pinch your hands. And the orientation that we want this in is, you're going to notice we have some hooks on here. We want these hooks facing up so they don't damage your tire, because the way we're installing it today is we're going to drape the chains over the tires. And a method of doing that is actually to fold over 1/2 of your chains, starting from the inside, going over to the outside, over. Once we get this all the way across, I'm going to grab it kind of from the center. One hand here, the other hand at this point, and we're going to drape it over the outside tire. Point it over, and back in across like this. With it laying at this point, we're going to grab the top section now, and we're going to drape it over the second tire. And then we can just go from this point, kind of adjusting this chain to sit in the center of the tire, and that we have enough excess on either side. Now there's a lot of different ways to make these connections for this chain. What I find easiest though is to grab a bungee cord or some type of longer item with a hook at the very end of it, And we're going to start with the center hooks and connect those, pushing this through in between your two tires. You could also use your rubber tensioner, but this is a little bit larger, so if you do have a bungee cord, it's going to be probably a little bit easier that way. I'll show you how I do it. So I'm just going to go underneath here. Again, I'm going to push this between those two tires until it reaches the other side. And you can try to get it to latch on from over here. I just find it easier just to get up and make that connection like this. Once you have that connection made, then we can go back to the other side. And then we're just going to pull this across so it's pretty tight. We're going to grab the hook from over here. There it is. And you're going to grab onto one of these links. I find it a little bit easier to go to the second link because I don't want to make this too tight because we still got to put on those other chains. If you find this is still a little bit loose, once you get those other two hooks here connected, we can come back through and tighten that back up. But connecting these ones is a fairly simple process. You can start from the inside. I like to do that most times, but I'll show you how I do it on the front side since it's a little bit easier to see. As you can see there, we're able to make a connection. We can try to get it a little bit tighter. You just have to pull in fairly tight. I'll probably leave it like this for now though, just in case it's too tight on the back side. Now when you get that back side connected too, it's going to be the same process. I'll come back through and kind of pull on this until it feels fairly snug. And sometimes you might find some extra slack there. I'll see if I can get this on a little bit tighter. In this case, I was able to. So it's a good idea just to double check. And from here, I'm going to grab our tool to tighten up these cams some. So I'm just going to start at this point here and work my way across. You're just going to turn this about 90 degrees. This is feeling a little bit tight now. Now I'm just going to do the same thing for this side on the inside. At this point, we have everything tightened down. Then we grab our rubber tensioner and start putting this on. Just make sure when you put these hooks in place, they're facing on the outside, so they're not going to puncture a tire. This you might have to reach a little bit, but we want to make sure we do this in a star pattern, so it's going to distribute that tension evenly across these chains. This is something I always recommend when you are putting on tires, chains, especially ones like this. They don't have a built-in tensioner on them. But with it installed like this, just come by, give it a good old pull, and then I'd recommend pulling forward, backing up some, make sure nothing shifts. If it does, just tighten it up a bit, and once you're done, you're going to beat this on the other side. But that pretty much does it for the installation. If you guys have any other questions, let us know here at eTrailer. And again, I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.